And welcome to the Dakota Housing Network. My name is Greg Larson, and in absentia, but shortly will be Dave Flohr. And that would be Dick, Dave, Don, John, Wayne.
Potato.
That's right. And on the boards is our good friend Jim Walsh.
Hello.
And we have some special guests today, Trish Schlosser and Nancy Willis.
Hi. Good morning. Hi, everyone out there.
Sharing a microphone. Trish is the Bismarck-Mandan Board of Realtors president this year. She's also, because she doesn't have anything else to do, she's the chairman of the North Dakota Government Affairs Committee, which is going into, of course, their busy season. Nancy is the Government Affairs Director for the North Dakota Association of Realtors. And today we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on in the world of politics and what's happening in North Dakota. We're going to stick hopefully close to real estate, but you never know where this is going to go. And we normally start with interest rates, and so we can do that. We weren't quite prepared. We're sorry folks, we're sort of half talking off screen or off radio here. So mortgage rates are lower this week.
Good news.
They took a dip down. We've had a 30-year fixed rate now is an average of 4.2% right now, with an average of 0.5 for the week ending of January 5th. So that's down from last week, where it was 4.32. A year ago at this time, the firm was 4.97. So it really hasn't changed that much over the year. We've seen a tick up. It depends on how you look at it. Some people say, wow, interest rates are exploding. And others are saying, that's 3 basis points. That's, not a whole lot. But interest rates are expected to climb. 15-year fixed rate for this is 3.44, which is up from 3.26 at this time last year. And the adjustable rate mortgages are at 3.33. So, folks, there's really no point in going into an adjustable rate mortgage, which will only go up at this time. However, they're out there, very close to the 15-year fixed rate. Interest rates are projected to climb this year. The Fed has said they're going to do 3 more rate increases, or possibly even 4 in 2017. The guys that really watch it think it's probably more likely to be 2. Over the year. And although mortgage rates aren't tied to the Fed rate, they do tend to follow it. And Dr. Lawrence Young, our NAR's chief economist, easy for me to say, chief economist, economist. Is that like a thermometer?
Yes, something like that.
He expects rates in 2017 to end up somewhere in the upper quarter of 4%, like 4.7, 4.75, right up in there. So we are going to see a slight potential increase in interest rates this year. The result that has on buying a home, of course, is for the same money you buy a little less house because you're paying a little more in interest. But the amount of interest rates we're talking about, folks, it's probably isn't going to figure into an average house price of around maybe $50 a month total. So it isn't terrible. So that's what's happening in interest rates. Nationally, existing home sales, the latest reports we have are for the end of November. If you have an existing home for sale, good news, they've been revised downwardly to $5.6 million in sales, down to 5.57 from 5.6, but they rose to 0.7% existing home sales. So that market is increasing. The indication is that existing home sales will continue to increase in sales. Part of the reason is because we have a slowdown in new home building, and new home buildings are up. At the same time, pending home sales backpedaled in November. This is a measurement that the National Association of Realtors has, which takes homes that are under contract but haven't closed, because it's a pretty static number, and it's good to get statistics off of it. And those things dropped off just a little bit in the last quarter. And again, Dr. Young says it's because we have a healthy job market, but we have an inventory that is not healthy at this point. And so that's pushing some home prices up, especially in new homes, and that's creating a hesitancy to buy. So the pending home sales backpedaled a little in November. They expect to be up. 2016 looks to be a better year in home sales than 2017 on the national level. We have the year-end stuff for 2016 for the Bismarck-Mandan area. Trish, you've got that?
Yeah, it was interesting to see 2015 and 2016 were very similar. So literally we're seeing over across the board in our MLS and in this central North Dakota area that we had a 0% overall, a 0% increase in prices. So it depends on your price range. If you're on that higher end, you might have seen a negative, and if you're on the lower end, you might have actually seen some appreciation in your home value. The days on market is up, which obviously that comes with more inventory. This is a healthy market, even though we're saying overall that there was 0% growth. The reality is it is still growing. It just depends on what price range you're in. And the average sold price here in our market consistently in the last couple of years has been around that 265, 267. So that has stayed very, very, very much the same.
Good. Are you seeing some compression, some reduction in upper level and increases in lower level? We're kind of compacting the market a little.
Definitely. That lower price range, it's all about the supply and demand, that there's a demand for that lower price range. And when we don't have as much inventory on those prices go up. But then we are flooded, and maybe flooded is a little bit harsh of a word, but we have a lot more inventory above the 400, 500,000. And so those prices go down. And so we stay at a higher purchase price average, but that demand is so high still in that first-time home buyer range.
Okay, that's very good. Well, Dave has been able to join us. He was in the middle of a serious meeting, I think, with the ghost.
Interest Rate Joe.
Yeah, the ghost of Joe Sheehan.
Yeah. He was here today.
He was here. He's alive and breathing. Yep. So we talked a little bit about what Freddie Mac says about the interest rates. Dave?
Okay, yeah.
You got any total insights in that?
They're still pretty darn good.
Pretty darn good.
Yeah. They went down from last week, right? So,
right.
Okay. Yeah, things are good. And actually today the market is favorable for rates going down today and tomorrow. So.
Okay, we're about ready to take our first break, folks. When we come back, we're going to pick up a subject that we talked about last week that we're going to continue today on North Dakota Housing Finance Agency's HIF funds. So we'll see you when we get back.
Let me tell you about a place somewhere up in New York ways, where the people are so gay, twisting the night away.
Right now it's 14 below.
The Red River Farm Network. Ag News is here on Super Talk 1270.
And we are back. Welcome back to the Dakota Housing Network. Man, I just washed my mouth and I can't do a thing with it, I guess, today. We're here with Dave Flohr.
Yeah, this is my favorite Faces song, too, by the way. Stay with me.
Stay with me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Stay with us, folks.
Rod's birthday next week.
Happy birthday to Rod.
Somebody else's birthday next week, too. Right, Jim?
Oh, yeah.
Jim's
At my
birthday,
age, I try
too.
not to think about my birthday.
Oh, okay. All right.
What we're saying is next week, January 10th, Jim Walsh's mama gave birth to a bouncing baby boy.
Yeah.
Is that Rod's birthday, too?
Yeah.
Oh, the 10th? You share your birthday with Rod Stewart?
I do.
Wow.
Also, Pat Benatar and Jim Croce.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
Pat
They
Boone.
share their birthday with you, Jim.
Oh, that's right.
Yes.
You're right.
Okay.
You're right.
All right.
I don't know about the Pat Boone. I was
Can't
just
beat
making
that.
that up. Also here with us is Nancy Willis, the Government Affairs Director for the North Dakota Association of Realtors, and Tricia Schlosser, the Chairman of the North Dakota Association of Realtors Government Affairs Committee. Man, that's a title.
We're raising the brain function in the room.
Well, yeah.
With our guests today.
And I'll leave and it'll go way up, so we're good. Yeah.
Well, you and I should both leave, and
That's
then,
true.
then
Well,
we'd be at
then
100%.
Then we'd be in trouble.
We'd be at 100%.
We
Yeah.
need the
Capacity.
diversity.
Oh, okay. That's what it is. Okay. Thank you,
Okay.
Nancy.
It's a diverse environment we're
Okay.
going for.
Yeah.
All right. So when we left, we said we were going to talk about HIF, Housing Incentive Fund.
Yeah.
It's a function of the North Dakota Housing Finance Agency, which Dave is involved in. And the HIF, so I'm the one that should be talking about this like I'm the expert. So, Dave, what is the HIF?
Well, it was created by the legislature back in 2011 as a way to address the overwhelming housing needs that were faced primarily in the oil country. And it provided a tax credit. People could invest in the fund, and they would receive a tax credit for their state income tax for the amount of their investment. So individuals, businesses, et cetera, could all invest in it and receive that tax credit. And it put up, I believe it was like over 3,000 units since 2011. And now
And
it
it's
is
a dollar for dollar.
It's a dollar for dollar tax credit. Yep.
It'll be taken over a number of years.
So you can extend it over. It's 10 years, I believe.
I think, yeah.
It's a state income tax credit. It's not federal. It's state.
Right.
And so it put up. I believe there was over 3,000 units that were done where the housing incentive fund was part of the package. It didn't put up. It wasn't the only investment into the projects. You know, the builders, developers used it as. I call it hard cash, basically.
Yeah,
It was
buy
put
down the
into
equity of the loan.
Yeah, right. It was equity into the deal. So it was very valuable to make these projects work. Lessen the finance costs, so then you could have affordable rents, and that was the issue. Is if you were working in the oil patch and you were making 100,000 plus, no problem paying your rent. But if you were the service worker at wherever, McDonald's, Walmart, whatever, you needed a place to live and you couldn't afford $3,000 a month rent, so this would be $800 a month or something.
And wasn't there's a manufacturer, is it in I can't remember, Watford City maybe, who built an apartment complex and used the HIF funds for housing for his employees. Is that not correct?
Yeah, that happened in a couple places, I believe.
Yeah, okay.
So, yep.
And folks, the HIF is not an oil patch program. Just it kind of started that way, but it is statewide. There's HIF programs in Mandan, Bismarck, Grand Forks, Fargo, Devil's Lake, Minot, pretty much all over the state.
And it's also been of great benefit to seniors, too.
Yeah, a lot of it went to senior housing. Because their rents were going up where they were at.
Right.
It was the market. It was supply and demand of the market that was raising rents. So this provided a place for people to.
Right.
And in the last couple of sessions, they also asked that there be a certain number of units set aside for essential workers.
Right. Police,
in those
firefighters,
areas, police, ambulance.
Nurse, medical field, other than doctors.
Teachers.
Teachers, yeah.
Yeah.
Because obviously, you're a school trying to recruit a teacher to Tioga. And I have to pay $2,000 a month for rent, and I'm making $40,000 a year as a starting salary. That's pretty tough. So it was a recruitment tool to get people to come there.
Right. Last week we talked with Jennifer Henderson from North Dakota Housing Finance.
She's the boss lady for
She's
that.
the boss of this.
Yeah.
Well, the thing that struck me is she said that the need has not really gone down. There is still a great need for more affordable housing.
Yeah.
For let's say the lower income working folks. This isn't welfare housing by any stretch.
Right. That's probably true. The rents are still high.
That's like 900 minimum, or they're still right up there.
Yeah, I think people think rents have come down, and so maybe it's not needed anymore. But I mean, you're talking rents have come down from $2,000 to $3,000 a month to like $800 to $900 a month. That's still very difficult for somebody who maybe can only afford $300, $400, $500 a month.
Well, if at the point I'm a young person or an elderly person that's on Social Security, or a young person working somewhere and making less than $15 an hour, I'm just starting out or whatever. $900 a month is expensive.
Yeah.
I got to get some roommates to live on my own.
Yeah. So the good things that HIF has done are pretty significant, and now we're looking at a budget cut time frame.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Priorities.
That's the thing with HIF. It wasn't a program that was set up to be ongoing forever.
Right.
It was approved, for one biennium. Then it got approved again in 2013 for another biennium, and then in 2015 for this biennium.
Right.
So it's up for.
So we're coming into the fourth biennium on this program.
Reauthorization.
And if it's not, if the legislature doesn't create the program again, it will end. It was not in Governor Dalrymple's budget. So it would have to come through the legislature, as far as I understand it.
Yep.
and there's two things: they could authorize a new program going forward, and allow more tax credits for it, or they could. There is still some money that hasn't been spent yet because the projects have, obviously aren't going to start now. But
Right.
they'd be planning to get started in the spring, and we would like at minimum to get it reauthorized to be able to use those funds. So
The
you
money
get
that's
what-
already been appropriated
So the
and
projects
raised.
that are in the pipeline
Right.
can get completed.
Because you're a reimbursement plan.
Yeah.
You don't upfront the money. You
Right.
pay back when it's done. So.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so I think that number we talked about was it 15 million or 30 million?
It's 30 million.
30 million
Yeah.
that is still to be spent.
Yeah, well, it's not all of that. Some of that's already been spent.
Okay.
It's a smaller amount.
Yeah, I think it's like 23 million that
Okay.
is still
That's
left
like
to
in the
be
pipeline.
distributed. Yep.
Yeah. So
Okay,
to speak.
so-
It's all allocated to projects.
Right.
There's nothing that's not allocated.
Okay.
And it's been fully funded. We've got investors, the people have funded the program
Right,
by
they just have to
purchasing
complete the
credits.
project so
Right.
that the
Right.
money can actually be dispersed.
Right, yeah.
Okay, so that's where we're at. That's the least we'd like to see out of this session of
Right.
the folks in this room anyway.
Yeah.
And I see heads going up and down, so I think we're all saying yes. And then, of course, it isn't in Dalrymple's budget. We haven't seen Doug Burgum's budget.
Correct.
We would like to see this, of course, continued. And what is the share that the state put into it?
Well, you could look at it both ways.
Well, yeah, because they're
it's
giving
a
away
tax
revenue in
credit.
the back end.
Right.
Right.
It's a tax credit, so that's money that they're not getting
Right.
through income tax. So they essentially are putting in that total amount. The other thing, the last session, we did get allocated $5 million from the Bank of North Dakota profits went
Right.
to it.
Yeah.
So you can argue that that's state cost too, obviously.
Sure.
Yeah. So it's not like it wasn't money created out of thin air.
Oh, correct. Yeah. Yeah.
The state, it is income tax revenue that the state is foregoing for this. So.
Okay. And that was, what was the number? 50 million?
Well, it's varied
Total
each
amount, it's
session.
varied each session.
Each biennium, it's varied. Yeah. Last one was 35 total, with the $5 million from the bank.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's where I got. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Before that, I think the biennium before that, it was the 50.
That's it. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think some of the discussions I've heard, around the Capitol, from people that are not exactly opposed to it, but, might want to see some changes. I've heard some people say, well, if it's a good program, which everyone agrees it has been, why not just appropriate the dollars and not do the tax credits?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a feeling that tax credits really have benefited like larger organizations rather than individuals.
Well, it's no secret. You can go out and look and see who's contributed, and on our website, and oil companies, Marathon Oil, et cetera. The banks have contributed heavily to the fund. There's no question about that. There are a lot of individuals that have contributed to it also, and as $100, $50 or whatever. There's a lot of those. But certainly the majority of the funds have come from companies.
And the projects have been multifamily.
Well, it was always
Yeah.
restricted to multifamily.
Yep.
Yep. And I think one thing that it's been talked about, there is a lot of older housing stock in the state, especially probably in rural towns, that were, rural development projects. It's called Old Farmers Home Administration projects that were built in the 70s. You've got FHA insured projects in that. And because of the federal government and their friendly rules, the owners of those projects were really restricted on what they could put aside for reserves. They were restricted on what they could charge for rents. So they couldn't put a lot of money into reserves. So these projects were built 30 years ago. Well, things wear out. And a lot of them could use some rehab. And, the lifestyles have changed. Maybe you've got 3-bedroom projects. Well, maybe in a small town you don't need that. You need 1-bedrooms for the seniors. Yep. Well, could you convert some of those units and get a couple more units out of it?
Right.
So that's an angle to look at for this, is gear it towards rehab like that for the HIF fund going
Okay.
forward.
And we'll continue this after the break. Thanks for listening.
Right now it's 14 below.
On Twitter, Facebook, online, and YouTube. SuperTalk1270.com.
Distance information, give me Memphis, Tennessee. Help me find
And we are back enjoying Rod Stewart. His birthday's coming up. He's what, like 100?
Something like that.
Still playing, though.
Still playing.
Looks good,
look
I
a
have
day
to
over
say.
90.
No.
What's that?
Doesn't look a day over 90.
Yeah.
He still looks better than Keith Richards.
Well, speaking of mummies,
Speaking of mummies. Okay, speaking of mummies, maybe
Segue.
this was not Keith Richards, but since I have our realtors in the room here, in Detroit, imagine it was in Detroit too. That's a tough crowd there. A potential Detroit homebuyer found a lot more than expected last week. They discovered mummified remains in the garage of a home. The body was entombed in the backseat of a dust-covered Plymouth that was 25 or 26 years old. It appears the body had been there for years and was beyond the decomp stage. Okay, so how do human remains go unnoticed for so long? Detroit police spokesman said that officers were called to the location after the body was discovered. The home was being rented to a family and did not use the garage. The potential homeowner opened up the car door and observed this decomposed body inside. We talked to the current tenants of the location, and they were told that the actual homeowners had basically said, don't go in the garage and don't put anything in it. Okay, I wonder if it had anything to do with it.
That sounds suspicious.
never mind the
right.
odor back there.
No,
it's
no.
fertilizer.
They might have
Don't go
kept the
there.
door locked too, I suppose.
Yeah. So now my question to you guys is, anything remotely like this, and would you have to disclose this?
Well, as per North Dakota law, now
Okay.
this might be different
Okay.
in Detroit, and I know it's even different in Minnesota, but as a North Dakota law, with disclosure of a suicide, a murder, a death in the home, the seller does not have to disclose. The
Okay.
buyer can choose to ask, has there been a death in the home? At that point, the seller can say, I choose not to say.
Ah.
So at that point, it's probably red flags to a buyer.
Hint, hint, wink, wink.
Hint, hint,
Yeah.
maybe check the paper, but
okay.
but yeah, we haven't run across anything quite like that
Okay.
in our
No.
local
Well,
market.
Well,
However, we found some fun stuff.
Yes.
okay, what did you find?
Well, I've not come across anything like that. I did have a client once who did want to find a haunted house.
Yes.
She wanted to buy a haunted house. And so that was one of the questions. Is your house haunted, as we were looking for houses? And
You found her one.
we bought one, and I won't tell you where it is. And I have not heard back from her if she's had any communication with the spirits.
Okay.
Well, if I really wanted to sell my house, I would say, sure, it's haunted.
Well, if they're asking, yeah.
Right?
I've had a buyer who wanted to go into every house and just said, I need to feel the vibes,
Yeah.
and make sure that it
Yeah.
wasn't haunted, and then if she felt it was okay, we could move forward and see the rest of the house. So it is real for people.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah.
that's
Yeah, some
So
people
you-
like that feng shui where they need to know
Yeah.
that the
Yeah.
house is facing a certain direction or the
Right.
rooms are facing a certain direction or
Yeah.
whatever. the
I just
case
want
might
my
be.
house to face south, so the
Yeah,
the,
so
the
the
ice
snow
melts
doesn't. Yeah.
that's most of us.
on the sidewalk.
True
Yeah.
North Dakota.
I actually saw that just recently on HGTV where this young couple, she was determined that the house faced south
Yeah.
because of that, and she actually, came to each house and made sure that she had, that it was facing south.
Yeah. Maybe a developer could put up a whole subdivision of houses that just face south. You think they'd sell?
Don't know.
It'd be a little weird, but
Yeah. You find some weird things in houses. Trish found something weird.
In the closet of a vacant home,
Yeah.
a big real bear rug hanging over. I did scream. I won't lie.
Open the door,
All right.
there it is.
all right.
I
well,
think the
it's-
strangest thing I found is I found a bar in a closet. The house, again, was vacant, and we were going through the final walkthrough. I mean, it was ready to close. And we're walking through the thing, and there's a closet downstairs, and I didn't think we'd ever opened it. And I opened it up, and it was full of booze. And all the booze was old. I mean, it had to be 15 to 20-year-old bottles of booze. And So
Did you confirm that it was aged appropriately then?
I did not.
Okay.
I was not the owner or potential owner of the house.
Oh, okay. All right.
I don't know what happened to it, but that was an interesting find.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're talking a couple shelves full. It was
Wow.
a couple dozen
That's a
bottles.
lot
of
to
Guess
leave
when you
behind.
have a
liquor.
lot, you have to use a closet.
Yeah.
A closet drinker. There we go.
Okay.
All right, back to serious stuff.
Okay.
Or semi-serious. We've been talking about the HIF, and we want the reauthorization to at least continue to fund the money that's been raised and is allocated so those projects can finish. And then beyond that, of course, we'd like to see the program continue. It doesn't seem like it's hurt anybody, and it's certainly helped a group of folks.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, certainly it's helped. I think the question that's being asked is, has enough multifamily apartments been built?
Right.
Is there enough new stuff? And I don't know what the vacancy rates are in Bismarck, Mandan, Minot, Williston, Dickinson, Fargo. What's the vacancy rate? And if that's climbed up, then there's probably not a need for more new stuff. But like we said before the end of the break, is maybe some rehab in certain areas of the state anyway.
Back in November, I talked with one of the guys that's involved with the Association of Apartment Owners. And he said at that time that units over 10 years old, pretty healthy occupancy rate.
Okay.
Rents are lower. It isn't the peak end, high end type things. He said over 10 years and newer, particularly 5 years and newer, they were still struggling to fill them to get a good rate. But he said they were filling. And I said this before, I live south of Bismarck, and I drive to the corner of Washington Street and Burley Avenue several times a week. And there's an apartment complex being built there, and I have a suspicion that it must be tied to the schools, just by the age of the folks I see coming and going, and the cars and that kind of stuff. But as they're occupying that as units are completed.
Yeah.
And I mean, a unit is completed and somebody's in there.
No.
So, again, I don't know if it has to do with student housing or anything like that, but that apartment isn't having any troubles filling up.
Yeah.
And I had heard that one, a lot of University of Mary students are,
Yeah, I would think that's
Oh,
true.
sure. Yeah.
because they're short of dormitory
Yeah.
space at the
Yeah,
university.
that's a quick jaunt for them.
Yeah, and then just a little farther north, there's a kind of a luxury unit, and they're advertising their rents at $1,200 and up.
Okay.
And they have a couple of pools, I think, that are going in and stuff, and those look like they're filling up okay. There's always cars and activity there.
Yeah.
And just in personal experience with rentals, people still have a desire to live in a neighborhood, in a duplex,
Yep.
and not in a big apartment building. I see more landlords taking pets. That's where that used
I
to
see
be.
that, too.
Nobody takes them.
Yeah.
More, and a lot of these large apartment buildings are taking them, and even one I know up north has a dog park. So I mean that's becoming, they're becoming more accommodating to that renter.
Yeah.
And it's interesting though that we might feel like we have an excessive amount of apartment buildings now being built, and that maybe we even feel like they're overbuilt. I don't know that they are, but it's not all areas of the state that
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
There's still such a high need for affordable housing throughout the state.
Yeah.
Maybe
Hotels maybe got overbuilt,
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
but because they were down, like Dickinson, they were down to like 50% occupancy. And I don't know what's healthy, but I know it's not 100%. It's
Yeah,
like
certainly
Yeah.
not 50%.
No.
But if you're like 70 in the 70s or something for motels, that's probably okay. Yeah. But when you see apartments, okay, they're being built and they're getting filled up. Well, that's
Yeah, I mean,
telling you that they're not necessarily overbuilt.
yeah. So who knows? I know that we needed by 2030, I think is the number. We need another 5,000 homes in Bismarck, Mandan.
Well,
That's a lot.
Just in the news last week, Williston Job Service was talking about there's an increase in hiring for oil jobs.
Yeah,
Well, and I know up in Grand Forks that they're, with this whole new aeronautics program
Yeah.
and the drones,
Yep.
they're supposed to get quite a few people in Grand Forks moving in, and they're very short of housing there. So they have concerns about that.
Yeah, yeah. So did you and Jennifer talk last week about the housing study that we did
yeah,
on?
we did
Okay.
some.
And that was interesting. It was kind of like all the state except for you mentioned Grand Forks here, and Jamestown, I believe, were showing that they were going to be flat. And, those two communities were concerned about that. But the reason why is, like Grand Forks, they had stuff that could potentially come business-wise. And the same with Jamestown. But until that's locked in, you don't necessarily need the housing that you
Right.
think you do. So it's the cart and egg or whatever,
Well, yeah.
that you say, well, what's got to come first? You throw a bunch of people into the community, you don't have a place for them to live. You got to start the process somewhere.
Okay, and in Jamestown, I can't remember, it was a corn processing plant, a large processing plant that was going in there that they walked away from for whatever reason. And so they were kind of gearing up. And so I can see why they would say that new housing at least would be flat, because they started producing some homes and things. And so they've got units to sell.
Yeah. So, it's tough. It's tough for a smaller community, and I'm talking in Jamestown.
Right.
How do you need the housing so a company that comes in sees, well, there's places for our people to live. But if it's not there, and they say, well, we're not coming until you build it. Well, how do you get somebody to build it?
Right.
And just like this company that was planning on coming in, but circumstances happen, and they stop.
Mm-hmm.
That's a tough one. Where a place like Bismarck, Fargo, you can absorb some of that, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, much more easily.
Yeah.
So we're about ready to go to the next break. We're going to have some kind of a Rod Stewart song. I don't know what it is, but
You
we'll
wear
listen
it
to
well,
that.
Greg.
And then, pardon me?
You wear it well.
I do,
Greg.
right.
Yeah, not as good as Nancy or Trish.
No,
but, yeah.
no. You're complimenting the wrong person in
Yeah.
this room.
Okay. Well, you're the host today, so
He wants to be in your
We'll be
good
back.
graces.
yeah.
Right now it's 14 below.
Weekends with Twilight Zone Radio on Super Talk 1270.
Right now it's 14 below. Shoot that weatherman.
Hey, we're hardy North Dakotans.
That's
we
right.
Can take it.
We can take this. Heck, our grandparents did it in log houses and sod houses.
And walk to school for 40 miles.
Yeah.
Uphill both ways.
Exactly.
The usual.
Yeah, I got that from my father all the time. I never got a ride to school, ever. I walked from first grade on. What he never put in there was he never lived more than a half a block from the school he went to.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I did the same. I walked to school my
Yeah.
whole life, but I was 4 blocks.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. Well, I did too, but I was never more than, I think, 5. But,
Yeah.
I mean, he literally walked across the street to school every day. of the way, so. He couldn't make it work. So, Nancy, Tricia, what is happening that you're seeing coming that realtors are keeping an eye on or concerned about? Or
Well, we always keep track of all the tax bills that are introduced and that are going through session, just because, taxes affect homeowners and property owners. One of the ones we're looking at closely this session is legislation that transfers the expense of county social services from the county to the state. What the legislature has said and what Governor Dalrymple had said is that, this transfer basically will replace the 12% property tax buy down, and will continue. I mean, that you'll always have a lower tax because the state has taken that over. There was also a discussion that there might be a legislation introduced that would look to do the same thing for K through 12. Right now it's an 80-20 split. The state's paying 80, the locals are paying 20, and it's been suggested that the state should also take over, 100%. If that legislation is introduced, that will be in competition with the social services legislation. So we'll see where that goes. We have a policy where we believe that if government is going to take property, that there needs to be just reimbursement. And there's a quick take bill that's going through the session. However, they've made a lot of changes that makes it, for property owners, it makes it more reasonable. And so I think at this point we are okay with the bill. And it applies to the water boards. And they've said in practice, really, it's rare that they use it and only as a last resort. And we have voiced our support for the Fargo-Moorhead diversion project, and they've had to use it in some cases there. And we understand that it's a necessity sometimes. So I think at this point we are okay with that quick take authority that would be given. There is also a bill that's going to be introduced that would require carbon monoxide alarms and detection systems after starting in January of 2018 for structures that have wood or other fuel-fired fireplaces, heaters, or appliances, or attached garages. And we, at this point, I think, we're concerned about the safety of tenants and people who live in homes, and we want to make sure that they're safe. So we are going to watch the progress of that bill and, just basically ensure that it doesn't require anything too onerous for homeowners or property owners. But certainly we support anything that makes it safer for people that live in.
So does that mean that would apply to like everybody? So like if I didn't have a carbon monoxide alarm in my house today, I have an attached garage.
Only if you sold or transferred your
If I sold
property.
it.
At the
Okay.
point that you did that,
Okay.
then it would be required.
But it's just like a battery one, or
Yep.
yeah, it doesn't
It
have to
would
be
be-
hardwired.
No,
Yeah,
it doesn't have
okay.
to be hardwired.
Okay, well
And
that's
our-
interesting. I would hope most people have that in their
And I
house
think
today.
what they have
but-
found as they've done research on that bill is that a lot of places already have it, a lot of
Yeah.
building codes already require it,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
And our conversation regarding that one revolves a lot around the investors with rentals. So making sure that they have those in those rental
Yeah.
units.
Okay. Yeah, because that's where you could see where somebody might not have it. It would be that. Yeah. Okay.
So those really are the things we're looking at. There's a bill that puts some additional parameters on one-call excavation. And, we're looking at that just to make sure that, again, there's nothing onerous for property owners where that's concerned. But other than that, really the tax bills, and there are going to be a lot of them this session. Again, we just want to make sure that there's nothing that for some reason impairs our ability for our realtors to do business or that hurts homeowners or property owners in some way. But, the feeling at the Capitol is that everything really is going to be about the budget this session.
Yeah.
And anything that isn't really a priority is probably, going to have a hard time making it through. So.
Yeah, it seems to me, talking with the schedule and looking at the schedules, tell me if I'm wrong, ladies, but it seems to me like they're trying to get everything that doesn't have a fiscal note on it finished real quick. So they're going to be able to concentrate when they get that March budget analysis to
And I think
bear
they
down
try
on
to
it.
do that in most sessions. They try to leave the appropriation bills, for the latter part of the legislature so that they can see how much has already been spent on the things that they've, approved.
I saw yesterday they had like a new revenue forecast that the legislature was going to use that was lower than what the governor's or the Dalrymple's last forecast was. And then will there be another forecast at some point during this session?
Yeah, there'll be one in March.
Okay.
And I think that's the one they're waiting for.
Okay.
Because you're right, this latest one was lower, but what they want to see is if there's a trend so that they can, basically what the legislature does every biennium is they're doing predictions about
Yeah.
what
Oh,
might happen or
absolutely.
what's going to happen. So
In 2 years in advance.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's like we have to put together a budget.
Yeah, for 2 years in
we're
advance.
we don't use any general fund money, but we still have to submit a budget to them. But we sit down as a management team and we look at it. Okay, well, 2 years from now,
Yeah.
you're not sure what could come up. That's
Right.
really hard, and
It's
just
very-
for us as a small agency. But then to think the legislature's got to try and figure this out, that's
Right.
tough.
And there's a lot of discussion. They've used Moody Analytics in the past, and there's been some dissatisfaction
Yeah.
that maybe there might be some other organization that might have better forecasting. So again, all that is going to come into play.
No. Kind of
during the session.
It's tough because if you're too conservative, then you get you didn't spend enough to
Right.
do this,
And you have too much money in
You're
reserve.
hoarding money.
Yeah,
and
you're hoarding.
now you're hoarding it, and now it's you spent too much.
Right.
is the answer
You're
is
being
what's saying now, and Now you got to cut way back.
And the thought is oil revenue is going to come up a little, but not, you know, not the where it was in the past.
yeah.
But, you know, the revenue hasn't dropped that much. What's dropped is the taxes from the exploration. You know, those exploration taxes. But the income is...
They're still pumping oil.
Well, yeah.
It's
but
still
I mean,
1 million
we're-
barrels.
We're just a tick over 1 million, I think, or maybe
Yeah.
a tick under.
Yeah.
And the
sales
highest we
tax
were
revenue's
is
taken a
1.2,
hit.
but the sales tax takes a hit because that's when people are buying to drill. That's, you know, that's the
Right.
hit. Plus the extraction tax, the production tax is steady, but the extraction tax, I think they call it, I can't remember, there's two
Right.
taxes.
Right.
That's the one that's taking a beating
Yeah.
right now. But yeah, I think they're trying real hard.
But we'll say one thing is, good thing the legislature took that trigger off the.
Absolutely.
yeah.
I
Absolutely.
don't care what anybody says, because we would have been
Yeah, they
having
would have
way
had
less
nothing.
money.
Doesn't matter
Yeah.
what party you're in,
Nothing.
we'd be down to the 5% production tax.
Yeah.
That's it. We
Yeah.
wouldn't have any
Be
of the
half of what
expiration
we
tax.
have right now,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so have we beat that one to death?
I'm pretty sure.
Did we?
Pretty sure. Okay.
I guess the only exciting thing for those of us who hang out at the Capitol is that now we have to go in different entrances.
Ooh, yeah.
And that's kind of a,
That-
it's an
that's a good
interesting.
thing to know. If
It's a
somebody wants
long
to go
walk.
to the
Yeah, somebody
Capitol-
who is from the public that's going to the Capitol can no longer go in the west side.
Okay, Jim
Or
and
the
I want
north
to go in.
side.
And where we got to go?
And you have to go on the south side, the main entrance that's under the
Okay,
covered
yep.
portico.
Okay.
Or you have to go around to the east side where the judicial building is,
Okay.
the one with the big black,
Yeah,
squares
where
on
the
it.
DOT
Yeah.
building
Right,
is at,
on the
that's
side
it.
where Department of Transportation. And in both entrances, there are, you have to go through detectors, metal detectors.
Mm-hmm.
So don't take a lot of stuff with you that's going to set off an alarm.
Okay, so
And
you can't go in.
If there's
the
a bunch of
west.
people showing up,
Or-
be prepared to stand
Or the
outside in
north.
line for a while.
So it depends upon where you can find a place to park.
Well, and that's, they built that beautiful new parking lot, but it's on the west side.
Northwest
where
side.
Public can no longer go in,
So you have to walk all the way around the building.
Or you
Yep.
have to try to find parking either in the visitor parking lot by the
Well, yeah, right.
Heritage Center or the judicial building parking.
If you get there at 5 a.m. in the morning, you can get in that little visitor
I'll
lot.
tell you though, you could be lucky.
They
When
could.
I got there this morning, there was somebody actually pulling out in the second row.
Yeah.
And I just went, wow, I must have done something right today.
You should go buy a lottery ticket.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I should.
there's-
I absolutely should.
There's another way you can get pretty decent parking.
How's that?
Be married to a senator and borrow her
Oh,
car.
stop it.
Yeah, but then you have to have
Well, I drop her off, and then I've got her car with the sticker. So
but to get in, you have to be able.
I still got to walk around
Well,
the
you get a
south.
little
but
closer,
I
though.
save a couple 3 blocks.
Because
You
you
get a little
still
closer.
have to use your badge to badge in on
Yeah.
the west and north.
Flash
So
that
if you don't
badge.
have that badge, you can't.
Yep.
Okay.
Do you think that's going to stay after the session?
I've heard yes.
I've heard yes.
Yeah. Do you get a badge? 'Cause
No.
do you register as a lobbyist?
We do,
But
but
you
we
don't
get
get
a
a badge.
name badge, but it's not a card.
Okay.
So we can't. So we have to go in through the public access.
Okay, so that wraps our show today. Thank you. Ladies, I think we might try to get you back sometime during the session so we can complain about what hasn't been done or what has been done.
When more
Or
has happened.
that's right, or the quality of the lunchroom food. I don't know.
It's very good, I'll tell you.
It is pretty good.
From
Good
past to
job.
when they redid the
Yeah.
cafeteria, they've done a very nice job.
All right, well, that's it. Thanks for listening, folks. Stay warm.